All right, everybody, we're gonna do a quick little inspection here. Finally got through raining. You can see my field out here is now a lake, and as we were watching it kind of fill up with water, Kelly and I kind of kicked around the idea of maybe just digging a pond right here, and then we were like, well, what's the point of that, because we got a 55-acre flooded impound back there, so why dig a lake right here? But we're still kind of kicking around how to divert this water, but that's something for another day. Anyway, so I got this from MTL. This is the same brush cutter I've had, the this is an older model, XCT. They don't actually make this particular model anymore. It's been fairly redesigned. But with that redesign, they also redesigned the flywheel underneath here. So I went up to MTL. I was in Atlanta there doing that retaining wall, and I went out there to see about getting some new blades for the old flywheel and talked to them, and they were like, well, let's just get you a whole new flywheel. And I was like, all right, cool. And so couple of things with the new flywheel. There's 3 or 4 actually big changes here. One are these new blades, and you can see they look completely different, both in the design and the shape and everything, and also the steel. They call these the Stingray blades, and they got a little rust on them, but you kind of see they have like this kind of texture finish to them. This is a the old blades were AR 400. These are a heat treated 5160. These are much harder, stronger steel blades. They even, I mean, they're wider, they're bigger than the old blades, and they are false, and they have a little bit different design. The blades that I have, they don't actually make anymore on the old kind. They do have a new style AR 400 as well. You can either get the Stingray blades with this, or you can get the redesigned AR 400. The redesigned AR 400 has a blade cut into it, blade edge cut into it all the way around, even on the front. They're very similar look to the blades on the XC5 I got sitting over there. But apparently these are supposed to last a lot longer, and they're supposed to last a lot longer between sharpenings. So the owner told me that the guys are telling him they're getting 3 to 4 times the run time out of these blades before they have to sharpen them. And you don't really have to worry too much about this right here, even though the whole blade isn't sharpened. He said, when this thing's turning around, most of the cutting is done in this first couple inches right here. So, and this thing turns so fast, this little bit in the back doesn't make too much of a difference. So both edges are sharpened, so because this cutter runs reversible, it runs either way. So the edge on these is not quite as sharp as what is on the 400. I think these are probably going to do better with the bigger stuff. We'll have to see how they do with grass and the lighter stuff, stringier stuff that I cut. But I think for the bigger brush, these blades are going to be pretty awesome. So really excited to see how they wear compared to the old AR 400 blades. So, but if you call them and you want these blades, just tell them you want the Stingray blades. I think that's on their website too, because that's what these are. So next thing with the flywheel are the actual blade mounts. These are the new hockey puck style mounts. The older style that I had on the old flywheel, this was an actual bolt head, like a hex bolt head here that was welded on. It had 2 or 3 beads of weld on it with a nut on top. Now you have this hockey puck here, where this hockey puck deal kind of locks in right here, and then you just tighten the bolt from the top. On the new models, there's a little access port. I think it's cut right here in the front, where and it's just got 2 little bolts on it, and you just undo them, and then you can get to this nut from the top. There's no cutting or welding or any of that other stuff required. You just got to have a gun big enough to get down in there to get that nut off. It's pretty big. But on the old ones, you would have to take this if you weren't mechanically inclined like I'm not. I would have had to take this and get someone to cut those beads off the old bolt and get this thing out, and then put a new bolt in, re-weld it and everything, and it just kind of would have been a pain. So that is the new thing. So the blades are much easier to be replaced if when you get to the point where you need to replace them. Though my old blades, on the old AR400 blades, lasted me about 2 years, about 200 hours on each, 100 to 120 hours on each side is what I got. I got more life as I kind of figured out how to sharpen the old blades. I got more life when I reversed it this year and kind of got better at sharpening and figuring that out. The first year I was running this, I didn't know how to sharpen them. I was an idiot with that stuff. So that was a learning deal. Next thing is the mulching teeth. So this thing is bi-directional. It will go both ways, but the mulching teeth are obviously, they only point one way, and they're designed to go that way. I guess if you wanted to, I guess you could go in there and reverse all of them if you wanted to, but like when I reversed mine, I didn't see a whole big difference in the quality of the mulch. But obviously this thing will mulch a little bit better going this way, but it has more mulching teeth now. On my old one, there were only 4 teeth, these 4 in the front. Now you've got 2 additional teeth in the back there that kind of take up some of that space in between the front 4 teeth to give you a little bit better mulching capacity through there. And then if one of these in the middle or whatever on the front were to wear off, you've got some extra mulching capability there in the back. So obviously you've got some more mulching capacity there. You've gone from 12 to 16 teeth now on here, which is a lot better. And then the final thing here is, and I don't know if you can kind of see them, these studs up in here. There we go. If you can see those sticking up, my old Flywheel did not have those studs right there. And what those are barbed wire protectors. And so if you were to hit any wire, barbed wire or fence wire, and it were to go up in there, instead of it getting wrapped around the shaft, the drive shaft, it will wrap around those studs, and it will protect your drive shaft. It'll also help keep, or it makes it a little easier to just cut that wire out from around those studs and just pull it out, instead of it being wrapped up tight around your shaft and you not be able to get a pair of cutters to it and try to get it out. I can only imagine that would be a pain. That never happened to me, but I can imagine that would be a pain. I've had some vines get wrapped up around the XC5 that have been a bit of a pain, but I've never had any wire. But that's just some added protection if you're doing a lot of work around farms and stuff like that, or residential work where there's a lot of wire and fences and barbed wire and things like that. That's a nice thing to have right there. Some nice extra protection for the cutter, and probably save you a lot of time if you do hit anything. So that is it. This is the new Flywheel. I'm excited. I haven't used it yet at all. Haven't had any jobs where I've needed to use this thing yet. With the new cutter, it's been so wet and rainy, and obviously it's winter time, so there's not a lot of you know, foliage and grass and stuff to cut. But I'm really excited to get out and try this thing and see how it does. So we've got some little grove of pine trees down here. I just walked down there and kind of found one that I think we could cut. It's fairly sizable. So I've had this thing warming up for the last 10 minutes. I just shut it off so I could go over this real quick. But I'm thinking about, let's ride down there really quick and mulch down a pine tree really quick and see how this thing does. All right, guys, so here's the tree I've nominated for execution here, I guess you could say. Don't worry, it's all in the name of science. Sacrifice will not be in vain. Okay, maybe not science, but close enough. So this is a pretty decent sized tree at the bottom. I don't know exactly what it is, but I mean, there's my hand. So that's probably, I don't know, 3-4 inches at the bottom. It's not the biggest pine tree, but it'll definitely work for this experiment, I guess. So probably could take out maybe that one, but it's a little big at the bottom. That's probably pushing it at the bottom. So we'll do this one. So but I'm sure we'll have plenty of days where we'll be cutting down bigger stuff, so no worries. But I just want to see how this will do. So let's set up the tripod, and I'll put the other GoPro on the machine, and we'll kind of get 2 views and see how this thing does. well, that worked pretty well. That was at the bottom, that was a pretty decent sized tree. Not the biggest, but every bit of probably 3-4 inches. I can definitely tell that thing with the blades on it. They definitely don't seem like there's a little more vibration when you cut there, probably because the blades aren't quite as sharp. That edge isn't quite as sharp, but it seems like it's that flywheel is way more balanced than the other one. It seems to spin better, and towards the end of that old flywheel, it seemed to have a little more vibration in it. Nothing like crazy or anything like that, but that one seems to spin a little smoother, a little better. And I think some of that vibration might have been from the blades wearing a little unevenly. Because you know, I think 2 of them are a little more worn than the other one, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's from hitting something or something as I sharpened them down, and that will actually cause your flywheel to have a little bit to become a little out of balance if 1 blade or 2 blades or whatever are ground down more. That's why they say, like, if you're using running old blades and one of them, like, you hit something and you need to replace it, you should replace all 3 of them. Because if you replace 1 or 2 blades and leave an old one on there, it will throw the flywheel out of balance. So it doesn't take that, there's so much force with that thing spinning, it doesn't take much of a difference in weight to kind of throw it out of balance a little bit, because there's so much centrifugal force with that thing spinning around, and there's so much weight. But that seemed to work pretty well. I'm excited to get that thing out. I mean, if it saves me some time, you know, with having to keep those blades sharp, I'm all about that. I mean, it still cuts fine, mulch is fine, and I have a real hard time keeping those blades sharp here because we have really sandy soil. Everything we have is sand here, and especially when it's dry and you're coming along with that brush cutter, it's just picking up all that dry, loose sand and just spinning it up into the brush cutter, and all those little sand particles hit those blades, and it's just like running your blades through sandpaper, and it dulls them that quick. It's the same way with a drum style mulcher. You know, you'll like I was actually on, I think, Fecon's website the other day, and they were talking about, you know, the DCR heads, the depth control rotor heads, like the ones that John with Upstate Brush Control runs, the new Blackhawk. You know, they say in sandy soils, you know, in sandy environments, those blades don't last as long because they just, especially in loose sand, or if you put those blades into the ground in sand, or even when it's dry and it's running that sand, you know, the dust up into it, it just wears them out really quick. So you can see the ground is soaking wet. Just me going back and forth started pumping water up through here. So the ground is dry when you walk, but if you start messing around with it, the water table is probably that low, you know, below the ground. But that worked pretty well. Let's looks like the blades have slowed down a little bit. Let's take a look at them, see what they look like. Come back, where you at? Oh, there we go. Yep, yeah, they don't look worn at all, not at all. And I kind of put them down in there a little bit in the ground and let them hit the ground a little bit to mulch, and they don't look at all worn at all. I think these things are going to be awesome. They're going to save me a lot. They're definitely wider, bigger, and they're probably carrying a little more weight up underneath there, a little more inertia when it hits whatever material you're cutting. So that's probably going to make up for that. And I could probably sharpen that down to a sharper blade, you know, sharper edge if I wanted to. But I mean, these aren't carbide, they're just a harder steel. So yeah, that worked. Sweet. I'm really happy with that thing. I'm gonna here in the next week or two, I'll probably take this thing back to the shop and I'll reverse the H valve, because this has the older style H valve that you have to flip around to reverse the flow. So I'll get it flowing back the right way so the teeth are pointing in the right direction, and yeah, we'll have some projects coming up. We'll put this thing to the test. I'm excited. Hope you guys are. So, all right, well, that's it for today. More stuff coming up. Stay tuned. I'll check you guys later. Grab my GoPro. I'm out of here.